Welcome to the series, Barrel Racing the Lynn McKenzie Way. Well, that's debatable in a way because it's taken years and years of working, competing myself in the WPRA, working with students and horses for over 30 years to get it down to what you're fixing to watch on this tape. The first part of this is, it's as easy as 1, 2, 3. And what we've done is pull the first, second, and third barrels out of the DVD magazine where I had my hair short. Now I've grown it out and it's long. But the information that we gave out on those barrels, how to turn, how to approach, turn, and exit those barrels, that is still very viable, important information. Because the biggest part of the barrel race when you're really competing is the mental game. And I would say that based on our experience of 30 years, plus the 6 years that we hauled in the pros, most mistakes that riders make and horses make are pattern-related problems. So that makes this, it's as easy as 1, 2, 3. The second part is good hands and body language. The third part is the perfect pattern. It makes all of this so important because of that mental game and your mental picture in it. If you don't have the right mental picture, then you're going to have a mistake because whether it's about your hands or the horse, it's going to somehow relate to the pattern. And you get that pattern right, I'm going to tell you, it's going to take care of a lot of your problems. So let me encourage you to get your pen and paper, write down some things, take some notes. Look at it again, study it, become a student of the barrel racing. And I'll tell you, this will make a huge difference. It's just like going to a clinic in a way, but you get to do it when pretty much you can do it. You can watch it like you want to watch it. You can watch it with friends and turn it off and talk about it. You can watch it, you can go out and do it, practice it yourself, see if it works, put it to the test. And so we just appreciate your interest, and hopefully we'll see you at a clinic. Last month we talked about a dropped shoulder. And if you remember, we talked that most of the time you can fix a dropped shoulder by running a more perfect pattern. And I know some people say, well, that perfect pattern, that's to each individual horse and rider. But I believe that there is a pretty close to perfect type pattern. And as we really get into the looking of those lines, those approaches to the barrel, the turn that you actually make around the barrel, and the exit to the next barrel, I think you're going to really begin to see how the whole thing, the whole pattern really starts in the alleyway, and how the approach to your barrel, the first barrel, really sets the pace for the turns on the rest of the runs. And so we're going to show you some things this month. I hope you have your pen and your paper. A lot of people learn by visual, actually looking at it. So we're going to draw some lines to the barrel with lime to let you look at some things. In the last issue, Murray said two things that were so very important. The first thing he said was that a step in a straightaway is 2.5 of a second. A step in a turn is 4.5 of a second. Now, if you took 2 steps out of a turn, out of the first barrel turn, and you took a step out of the second barrel turn, there could be nearly a second of time that you need to go up a division. If you took 2 steps out of your straightaways, that could be a 1/2 second. That could take you from the second D to the first D. And because many times we feel like, well, I'm 2/10 out, I'm a 1/2 second out. We feel like we need more speed. We have to have that speed to compensate for that lack of time. But we just wanted you to get the picture that this time could be taken by the steps that you're making. Maybe you're making 1 too many steps in a turn, or Maybe you're making one too many steps in a straightaway. You know, starting your turn too soon could put an extra step going in and an extra step coming out. So when you look at your pattern, that perfect pattern, I want you to really get a visual picture, and I hope that you really enjoy what we're going to show you this issue. The most important things that I think that barrel racers have to think about is being consistent from one arena and one type of ground to another arena to another type of ground. And so when you're talking about that perfect pattern, what we really are aiming at is consistency. had rather be third or fourth every time I run than first, say, every fifth time that I run. Because in the going for a full year, you know which one is going to win the most money? The consistent one. And the one that knows, you know, if I can make that good third or fourth place run, my turn to win first will happen. I will be really on that day myself as a rider. Maybe my horse warms up good. Maybe it's a good arena for the horse and the rider, so to speak. There can just be some things that happen that propel you into that first place check, but it gets really hard if you're kind of floundering with you're really on or you're really off. And so we begin to work on consistency. Well, here's one of the ways that as we went to the national finals 5 times, 2 world championships, 2 reserve world titles, won the finals 2 times, won Houston twice. I mean, all those different places were different arenas. And so here's what we begin to do. We'd go out and we'd find the barrel or the barrel stake. I can be professional today and have a cone, but back then it might be a Coca-Cola can or just whatever we can find kind of can. And so I'm standing here, I'm walking back toward the timer on the opposite side of the arena, and I'm going to go out 15 feet. Well, when I take my steps, I know that if I really step it off, I can be, you know, to my place, to my entrance in 5 steps. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And so here I am 15 feet from the barrel going back toward the timer on the other side. Now at this point, we have a cone right in the middle of the alleyway, and we have lined these 3 points up in order to show the line that I need to come out of the arena, out of the alleyway into the arena. Now on every run that I make, I need to find this 15-foot entrance. You know why? Because it's consistent. It's continually telling my horse, this is the place that we need to get to. Now with a colt, you have to be very consistent to line this up. If you have to ride him two-handed to this place, really work on your mentality to get into this place. Now from this 15-foot entrance, the next step will take me in a little closer to the barrel, and so at this point I'm about 10 foot from the barrel. When I drop him in there to turn, I want to get in beside the barrel at about 5 feet. Now we're going to draw some lines, so if you'll stay with me for just a minute, I'll be right back and we'll draw these lines. Now if we just talk about the alleyway for a minute, we are filming from this end because these 2 gates really do not make a true alleyway. And sometimes these are the hardest arenas to run where you don't have an alleyway that funnels you into it. And because these alleyway or this gate is so wide, you can come from any number of places back here. But this line that you're seeing going right toward our cone at the end of the arena is the line that we would want to run out of this particular alleyway, mainly because we can, and it kind of angles or makes a little diagonal across the center of the alleyway. I mean, this one spot can be so crucial as whether you pull a check or you fall in a hole or you're too slow or maybe you're too fast or whatever it might be. But the whole frame of thought is to be consistent, to make that same run every trip. Now, this line, you can see it just comes right out of the center of the alleyway, and you hear girls say, you know, you need to pick some point to the right of the third barrel and run at that. But see, from this point, right as you came in the arena, in this particular arena, this line is already a wrong line because it's going to mess you up on your approach to the barrel. It's going to put an extra stride or two in your straightaway. It's going to create havoc in your turn. And so once you get lining up the first barrel, getting your 15-foot entrance, lining it up, see from where the camera is even would be where you could start running from because you would be on line. Now, we have a 30-foot score today, really strictly for filming purposes. But anytime we got to a score line that was 40 feet or less, even though the barrels are out in the arena, I wouldn't necessarily step back and take a big run at that first barrel because it really doesn't even matter about the arena. Most of the time, if you charge the first barrel on a short score, you're going to run by. And that's one more step or two that you do not need, because every time you make a mistake, remember the timer is ticking. Isn't a picture worth 1,000 words? Here's the perfect pattern, or it's maybe fairly close to perfect for some. But this line is going to angle across your alleyway. It's going to bring you into your 15-foot entrance. Now, what would be the red pattern? If you remember Murray's talk in the last issue, you can see that when you cross the starting line, that horse really begins to drop. We would call it drop his shoulder toward this barrel because he knows one important thing. He has got to turn to the barrel, and he has to be over there to it in order for that to happen. And so here he is dropping across and cutting you off in this line. So he takes an extra stride. There's 2.5 tenths, cutting across. This rider's out just a little bit. But by the time that they actually get to the turn, you know, the horse's body in this position is in position to turn. Because where does the turn come from? Is it just a matter of pulling the nose? No. The turn actually comes when he gets up in here deep enough that he can take his inside back leg and go 1, 2, 3, and then push off to the second barrel. So he has 3 steps in the back of the turn at the first barrel. Now, we don't think in 3 dimensions like the horse does. He's got to think about how tall he is. Some of them are pretty big horses. How broad he is across his chest and hips. Some of them are pretty big boys there too. But he's also got to think about length from nose to hip, because he has to come into this turn in a place where he can engage that hip. But yet here he is going out to no man's land out here because he's got to clear his hip. If I'm the rider in the saddle and here's the horse's hip, there's no way possible that he can engage when he's in this direction going up this fence. He needs to be changed over, and I call it sort of perpendicular. If you look at the line, it's not exactly perpendicular to the fence, but he has to be on this line so that when he gets with his hip to the barrel, and we'll see this in a minute as we ride, when the horse's hip gets to the barrel, then he's able to really engage behind and make that turn step. A horse is much like a boat. The steering mechanism of a boat is not in the nose of the boat. The steering mechanism is in the rear end of the boat. And we spend a lot of money on bits trying to control the nose, But when that hip begins to turn, see, then that automatically pushes the nose around to be on a direct line to your second barrel. And so we have one more line that we want to talk about, and so we'll just come back in just a minute. Okay, now I still want you to look at the perfect pattern, or what we're calling perfect. And then we've drawn another line, which is running in there a little tighter, getting into that turn a little bit tighter, you know, really hugging the barrel a little bit more. And I want to talk about this one because this is doable. I believe it takes some athleticism with the horse and the rider. I think the rider has to be athletic. I think the horse has to be athletic. But this is sure doable. But I just wanted to have some thoughts about running them in there this tight. First of all, I believe that to run in there that tight